Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com. Today I want to talk to you a couple of minutes about fork oils, and specifically how your choice of fork oil will affect your motorcycle handling and performance. Now, what do you need to look for? Well, first you need to have a basic understanding of what happens inside your fork and how the different oils will impact what's going on inside. So if you're ready, we'll go take a look. So let's go. Okay, so what's going on inside the fork? Well, basically, there's a spring that compresses as you go over bumps and then rebounds once you get to the other side. Now, there's also a dampening system that controls the rate of compression and the rate of rebound. And that's where the fork oil actually comes into play. The dampening system will have a dampening rod, some number of valves, which are basically just holes, and the fork oil, which flows through those valves when the spring is compressed, that pushes against the dampening rod, and the rods force the fork oil through those valves or holes. So the rate of the oil flowing through those holes controls the rate of compression and hence the rate of rebound. Now you control that rate by the viscosity or thickness of the fork oil. So what happens when that oil is just a little too thin? Well, your compression and rebound rates, they'll be quicker. You might feel the fork bottom out and the motorcycle feels like the front end's basically bouncing around, and that means it's going to be unpredictable. Now, on the other hand, if the oil is too thick, it can't pass through those little holes as efficiently, and that's going to mean compression and rebound are going to be slow. And that can make for a really harsh, bumpy ride since the oil is holding up the spring from allowing travel inside the fork. Now, the other thing that fork oil does is provide lubrication for the fork tubes themselves. Now, this helps to slow down wear and corrosion, and also helps with heat, since the constant movement of the tubes, it generates a lot of friction. So, the thickness of the fork oil is measured in viscosity, and that is a measurement of how resistant a fluid is to flow. You got me so far? A higher viscosity, the slower it flows, like syrup versus water. So the higher the viscosity, the more dampening you get, since it takes more force to get the fork oil through those holes in the valves in the fork. Now with a lower viscosity, you get the exact opposite. Simple, right? Well, the trick is finding out what's what, because viscosity and weight, they don't always line up. And you can end up with lots of different viscosities that are all the same weight, and even end up with higher viscosities at a lower weight. So a 5 or a 7 weight fork oil might end up being thicker than a 10 or 15 weight fork oil, and that just makes it even more confusing. So what you need to look for is the viscosity index, or VI for short. What that does, it gives you a measure of how consistent the viscosity of your oil is across a temperature range. And the higher the number, the more consistent the oil is. Now it also means that you'll have less fall off in dampening capabilities as the oil heats up, since it's going to be more consistent. And a lower number of fork oil will thin out and offer less dampening properties. So how do you pick an oil? Well, you get on the internet. The VI indexes are all over the place. I mean, how do you get the right fork oil to go in your fork? Well, think about how much weight you're going to be putting on the suspension. You, maybe a passenger, maybe some luggage, and realize the more weight you carry, generally the thicker the oil needs to be. Then you need to think about the surface that you're riding on. Are you just on public roads? Do you get off on the trail sometimes on a dual sport? Maybe you're racing on really smooth asphalt, so you don't need anything nearly as thick there. And finally, some of it goes down to personal preference. How do you want the motorcycle to ride? A big cruiser needs something thicker to handle the additional weight, and a dirt bike, where you're going to be in nothing but bumps, might do better with something thinner and more reactive. So here's the thing. Your manufacturer is going to offer some recommendation as to what kind of fork oil you should take, and it's a good idea not to stray far away from that. Maybe you want to move a little bit one way or the other, but you don't want to go crazy. If the manufacturer says to use a 5-weight oil, maybe go to a 5-weight oil with a higher or lower VI index. Or maybe get an oil just a little bit heavier, but don't say go from a 5 to a 15 weight. That's going to drastically change what happens in your fork and how your motorcycle rides. So just remember, moving around that viscosity index is going to allow you to fine-tune your ride as opposed to jumping into a way heavier oil and just hoping for the best. Well, that'll about do it, guys. Just remember, think small changes to fine-tune your ride as opposed to big swings into the unknown. And if you want to see us change the fork oil in a motorcycle, well, we've got a couple of videos taking you through that process. Well, listen, if you need any parts for your machine, come see us at Partzilla.com and we can get you taken care of. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. We just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at Partzilla, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.